Welcome to the Winners Win podcast, where we highlight awesome people in Kansas City and their secrets to success. I'm your host, Jaime Simpson. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Net Standard. At Net Standard, we manage technology so you can manage your business. Today's guest is Shanita McAfee-Bryant, Executive Director and founder of The Prospect KC. She's a renowned Kansas City-based chef that has competed and won countless reality TV cooking competitions and is here to tell us more about her culinary journey. Hi, Shanita. Thanks for being with me today.
Thank you for having me. I love these little not so fireside chats because there's no fire.
But there are some plastic plants, and that is almost as good.
Yeah, exactly.
And I know you had a long commute to get here.
Oh yeah, a whole 6 minutes. It was just grueling. I don't even know how I made it.
That's right. Well, thank you for making it. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. I'm happy to be here.
Well, we've met a couple of times, but I don't know you well. So I'm looking forward to I have all the questions about all of the things. So I'm super excited.
I'm ready.
Okay. The first question that we start with always is tell me, because the name of the podcast is Winners Win, which is sort of a joke, but whatever, it's about successful people and we like winners. And so that's great. But I like to ask you first to remember a time that's either a memorable or like a first loss, someplace where you had a massive fail.
Like public fail or just
can be anything. Fail? It can be anything. Some people talk about Little League and some people talk about some business situation. It can be whatever you feel comfortable sharing.
Geez. Gosh, there's been so many. How do I choose?
Well, I'm so successful. I never fail.
No, that's not it. No, I think it probably would be recent. That's like to say in like the last 8 years would be Barbecue Blitz. It was a show, another Food Network show that they taped here. And, I didn't win and I was like eliminated first, which was horrible. And, I'm not always the most graceful loser. And so I was pretty emotional about it. And then people in my family were like, well, why are you so upset? You can't expect to come here and win everything. I was like, well, then what was the point? Do you think I got on national TV to lose? No.
So did you express your angst on camera?
No.
Like, did you fully?
No. It was after. It was a full-on meltdown after.
Well, I'm going to have to look it up and see if I can find it online because I'm like a total nerd about food cooking competition shows for absolutely no reason. I'm not a horrible cook, but I'm not a good cook. But for whatever reason, I find it extremely like satisfying to watch people like you who are like amazingly creative and then, for whatever the scenario is. But I do think it's funny when sometimes they get eliminated and then like completely go off.
No, I wouldn't do that, but I definitely did it after. So
that's fine. Well, that's good. That's why you look like a graceful loser.
Thank you.
Well, tell me a little bit for people who might be watching who don't know you well. Yeah. Tell me what you're doing now and what gets you up every day. What's exciting?
Yeah, I think that I call this my retirement portion of my career. So
you seem kind of young to be retired.
I've been trying to retire since I was like 28. It's like my life's goal is to be retired.
Well, good luck.
I would probably be bored, but I just want to retire. So I founded about 2019, 2020. It's called The Prospect KC. So it's a workforce development social venture. We focus on, obviously, workforce training, food access, and nutritional literacy in a culinary environment. So right behind us, if we could magically see through this wall, you would see over into the next building, and that's where our training facility is.
So how did you create that dream? Like, what was it about doing that? Obviously, you're a chef, right? Yeah. You're trained as a chef, and you've mentioned competition, and you've done all sorts of things, and you cater and other things. But what made you dream of the opportunity at Prospect KC?
I think it's a planting of the seeds and things just kind of coming to fruition at the right time, right? I think part of being a successful business owner is to understand not right now. It's not necessarily a no, it's just like not right now. So when I saw this concept in Seattle 8 years ago, in my mind, I thought, oh, this would be great in Kansas City. We don't do workforce development like this. But at the time, I had a food truck and a small child and just all these things. And I wasn't really it was like a back of the mind kind of thing. Fast forward to 2018, my dad passes away. was my business partner and like world's biggest cheerleader. And you just take some time to like reevaluate. And then I was able to revisit that like thought of like, man, I wish I could do something like that here. And so that's why I say this is like the retirement portion of my career, because it's less profit focused and more passion focused and more community focused and more, giving, and less like, in the food business, you're in that rat race. You're like, what's your food cost? What's our prime cost? What's our, and it's less of that and more of like outcomes, and are we developing people, and are we meeting the needs of our community, and are we providing something that's healthy, nutritious, and affordable, that part of it. And that leaves me in a good space for like creativity, because believe it or not, when you're like a chef owner of a restaurant, you cook very little. You're really like the head therapist in the insane asylum, and you do a lot of other things besides cooking.
But was that always your dream when you I mean, how did you start cooking?
Oh
What
yeah,
made
I've
you?
always oldest of four. My parents were like, you need to cook dinner.
So you did.
So I cooked dinner. I also was like super clumsy. Always had like knee braces or ankle braces or something weird going on. So that doesn't really lend itself to like athletics and trying to like run around. No coach wants to see me coming with my 2 knee braces and my wrist brace. They're like, ma'am, tend the orange
This is
slices.
perhaps not for you.
You
Yeah.
go tend the orange slices in the
Orange
water
slices.
and let us handle the sports.
Right.
So it just wasn't in the cards for me. And this was a place for me to be analytical and creative and all in the same environment.
That's great. I wish my kids do not embrace the chore of cooking with the same
Oh, I didn't either. You
passion.
have to ask my brothers and sisters about it. Sometimes the meals were very weird,
Oh, ours aren't
especially if I
weird.
was
It'll be
upset.
like, hey, here's ramen. And
I
yeah,
mean,
okay, well,
one time I
ramen.
sauteed carrots in French salad dressing. So I'm just saying it wasn't all gourmet. Sometimes I was like, well, it's food, and gave them hot dogs.
There you go.
Yeah, sauteed carrots and salad dressing and hot dogs.
Well, I have to be honest. I love a good hot dog every now and then. I know
Probably
that's
not with
it's
French
horrible.
salad dressing though.
No, that does sound kind of nasty, but I probably would have tried it. Like I'd be like, well, it's a hot
They
dog.
were. I do remember them in my childhood being like, okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
So, was it always part of your dream to own your own business, or is that where you saw your career going, or how did you?
I don't know that it was necessarily a part of my dream as a part of my DNA, right? When your parent is an entrepreneur and you watch your parent build a business, it never occurs to you that you want to go punch someone else's clock. Like that just never was in the back of my mind. And it's not that I never had jobs, I have. I'm just a terrible employee because I just wasn't raised that way. I'm like, what do you mean? I have to ask for time off? I have a doctor's appointment tomorrow. I'm not coming. Like, what are you? I'm going on vacation. So that just never clocking in and out. They would be like, you've been clocked in all week. Oh, oops. Sorry. I'm here. So it just wasn't, it was never something that I saw myself doing. Obviously in your chef's apprenticeship and working around, you do it because it's a part of like your learning and your grade. But in my mind, I always thought if I'm going to be where I know I can be, it's not going to happen with these people. I have to chart my own path.
That's great. I think that that's a really, I think it's an interesting legacy. And the more people I talk to who are entrepreneurial have somebody like that in their life, whether it's a parent or a mentor or somebody that, they catch the bug of, like you said, it seems normal because that's what your father did. So then that's sort of how you grow up thinking about what work looks like. Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about what you're doing at the Prospect KC. Now, how does the program work and
Yeah.
what I know you've got several stages of growth you're going through. So,
Yeah.
so where are you at? What are
Right
you doing
now, we're
now?
in the geez, we wish we were open stage.
Okay. That's fun, probably.
That stage. And hopefully I'll be like, oh, dang, I wish I was. No, I don't know what the next stage is. But honestly, we work with multiple different groups of people depending on where they are. So unlike the current workforce development system, where it kind of treats every single person who comes in, if you're like, this is Jamie's training facility, you're going to get an 8-week certificate, thank you, goodbye. And that's kind of like the interaction. There's not a lot of like personal assessment. And so we try to take a very individualistic, personal approach to it, understanding that people's lives are not a monolith and they're And it's not that people can't get a job. That's not the problem. And if there's one thing that people take away from something that I've said from this podcast, is stop calling the underworked or the underpaid or the underemployed lazy. They're not lazy. They can get jobs quickly and better than anybody that you know. What happens is that they don't have the skills to sustain themselves when life starts lifing, right? You're a business owner and you understand that there's this mental fortitude that entrepreneurs and owners and successful people have that can be taught, but for some people it's just innate, right? We just know how to like motivate ourselves,
Right.
push through the difficult times to the next thing. But for some people, particularly the people that we work with, there's all these layers of difficult things and they just have a hard time navigating through that. So we really like to work with them on navigating through the life part and refining skills so that they reach some sustained economic mobility. Instead of doing this, they're gonna make that upward swing.
What are some of the big challenges that you see people face? I mean,
And
are there specific things you teach to?
yeah, I think food insecurity was one. I don't think that people realized until the pandemic that they said 13%. I think the number is higher than that. I think it's more like 25% of all food service workers. And I'm expanding the number because I'm even encountering people who work like on dairy farms or in the fields. Those are still food service workers.
Sure, right.
Are food insecure, and one of their pain points in life is accessing or understanding or knowing how they're going to feed themselves or their families throughout the week. So one thing that is different from our program, everybody eats. When you're working, you're eating. Do you need breakfast? Do you need lunch? Do you need to take something home? We're not going to sit here and, kind of haggle with you over a meatloaf. If you don't have food for your children, then we want to scratch that off the list. This is a restaurant. You should be able to eat. You should also be able to, if your friends and family want to come here, they should be able to afford it, right?
Right.
Be able to afford to eat it. So pricing ourselves at a point where we don't price out the community and the people who are in this neighborhood where we are.
That's interesting. I guess I've never thought about when you think about food insecurity and food deserts and some of the things.
No, I don't like the term desert.
Okay, tell me about that.
No, it's food apartheid. So when we allow people to say desert, that gives
It's like it happened
all by itself,
naturally
right?
instead of somebody forcibly moving the businesses out of the community.
It's the same as
I get that. Yeah.
like when you look at like pictures of the civil rights movement and they're all in black and white. Well, my parents were born in the 60s. Have colored pictures of my parents when they were children.
Yeah, right.
Why are all the pictures of Martin Luther King black and white? Because they want, it gets your mind to think, oh, that was a long time ago. Same with desert. Oh, there's not really anything we can do about this. It's something that just happened.
How interesting.
What can we possibly do? So when you call it apartheid, you're acknowledging and calling to the fact that it's a system. And this area did not become under, and it's all the underserved, underfunded, marginalized all by itself. There are systems that were put in place over a long period of time that got us to where we are in these food deserts. They didn't just sprout up.
Yeah, they're not a natural occurrence like a actual desert.
Right.
Yeah.
So when we leave this podcast,
really
you and I
good.
are not going to leave out of here and be like, let's go pick some place in Kansas City and make a desert. Like, it's just like, we're not going to do that.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
We shouldn't do that. So I guess what I was starting to say is I think when you think about people that are, and I'm trying to remember the word you used, but people that are underserved or underfed or they food insecure, right? Mm-hmm. People that are hungry and they're growing up and they're insecure. I think we've gotten a better idea of what that looks like over the last few years. And I think you're right. The pandemic certainly shed light on all of, and even some of the systems that were helping to prevent that had gone away. And I think that that's interesting. But it's interesting to think about the people who are serving you your food being themselves food insecure. I guess I've never, I guess I've never thought about it that way, and how difficult it would be to be around food all day, but not have food for yourself at home.
Right. A well-balanced meal is the basis of everything, right? So I cannot address behavior. I cannot address mental illness. I cannot address homelessness. I cannot address drug and alcohol abuse. I can't address any of that if, number one, your mind and body are not in a position to address that, and it won't be if you're hungry or worried about being hungry. So you have to start at the. To me, dealing with food is ground zero. Let's figure out what this nutrition and food part, and then we can start working on all the other pieces of this puzzle and get people whole.
Yeah, I think that that's it. It seems so commonsensical, right? When you say it, you're like, yeah, of course. When we were a kid, we had to learn that stupid Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and we all could fill in the pyramid and say all the things. But the truth is, if your basic need of food, shelter, water are not met, then everything else can't happen. And I think we've tried to be better about that, like in the school system and in other places. But I've got a friend who has a son that they adopted out of foster care, and they adopted him when he was, oh, I don't know, 2 or 3, something like that. But he was food insecure prior to being fostered. And so he hoards food. And so it took them, and this was like now 7 or 8 years ago, but he still, if left to his own devices, he will hoard things. He'll put rolls in his pocket, or he'll do, because even as a very small child, he knew what it was like to not know whether or not he was going to be fed. And I think that
Now imagine going to school
right,
with
and trying
that
to
like
learn something.
weight on your brain or your emotion, right? So that's why I feel like when you take a more individualistic approach to the whole of the situation, and you start to understand that it's not, you know, as easy as people pulling themselves up by their bootstraps, which I freaking hate that terminology too.
Yeah,
It's like,
sure.
yeah, but your boots are Prada and theirs are from the Goodwill. So I'm
Yeah,
just saying, like, different boots.
it's a little different. Yeah.
Yeah, different boots. So don't say that.
So you talked about how you're addressing people individually. How many people can go? Like, do you have a class or a group of people that go through a program at a certain time? Is there
Yeah.
pacing to it?
So it's
How do you
designed
select your
similar to
teams?
my like what I experienced as a chef's apprentice at JUCO, Johnson County Community College. So it's a classroom setting and then a work in the kitchen that's next door. So they're going to be able to go and learn and then apply those skills in a very real life environment, right? How can I teach you about customer service in a classroom? We can go over all of the things about customer service in a classroom. But if I never put you in an environment where you can practice those things that I taught you about customer service, then it's kind of silly for me to expect you to just keep that in the back of your brain and go to some job and then all of a sudden you're like a customer service expert. Like that, it doesn't work like
Yeah,
that.
right.
So it's really them learning a skill and then we're reinforcing it in their work environment.
That's great. So how long does
It's
it?
16 weeks.
Okay.
We hope that we'll be able to provide more internships so that we'll have more of the participants stay on with us as full-time employees. But if not, then we're developing rather a list of qualified work employers who will hire them. And when I say qualified, the main criteria for me is that you have to pay a living wage. If you are going to pay $10 or $12 an hour, please don't even think about calling me. It's a no. I'm
Yeah.
not putting people in $12 jobs. That you cannot live on $12 an hour.
Do you have then a list of partners that are hiring your staff? So is it hard to find or?
Sometimes it is. They're not all food service. And so I don't want people to get hung up in the fact that it is a kitchen and we are doing culinary training, right? Because there are transferable skills that you get in just a food environment. And we researched it. There was like a dozen Fortune 500 CEOs who have publicly said, I got my start waiting tables, washing dishes, bartending, whatever, a line cook, a prep cook. So we know that you learn a lot in this industry and you can take those in other places.
Oh, I think that's 100% true.
Yeah.
I think, and obviously I'm in the tech industry, and so certainly we have some specialized skills you have to know to do certain jobs, but there are a lot of those things that are transferable. We don't necessarily need somebody that's a brainiac in technology
Right.
to be a project manager or work with accounts or answer the phones or do some of the other things. There are plenty of transferable skills, but I think sometimes we get kind of pigeonholed into whatever our industry is and what we feel
Right.
like our background is. And
Right.
so that's great. So how do people how do people participate? How do you pick the
Right now, they come from referrals. So this is not a like you get the golden ticket Willy Wonka type situation. It's like referrals. And the other thing that I learned, or that annoyed me rather, coming from the business world to the nonprofit world, is that sometimes when there's like programs or things that are meant to help people, there's all these like built-in barriers and booby traps within said program that also make it difficult for people to join. So I'm really trying to avoid as much of the like, you have to prove yourself worthy to join this program in order to be a part of this program.
So how many participants have been in the program so far?
So right now we've done just youth in little one-offs in terms of like working with different agencies, doing one-off programs with them. So when we finish our recruiting, we'll have 25 that will start over there.
Wow, that's great.
Very soon.
That's very exciting.
Yeah.
How soon is soon, do you know? Is that a bad question? Well, sometimes soon is like 4 weeks from now, or like you have a solid date, and sometimes soon is like,
Soon is
somewhere
in
between 6
2023.
weeks and
Let's
6
say
months.
2023.
Okay, that's great.
So every time I give a date, then they're like, gotcha, not that date.
So are there ways
We were just kidding.
That's right. Well, it seemed like it was going to be that date-ish, So yes, that's why I was like, well, I don't want to like ask you if you don't
I have no idea.
have not unveiled the
I have
date
no
yet.
idea. I have
Okay,
no idea.
great.
Hopefully soon.
Well, soon is good. Soon is soon enough, right? So are there ways that you're looking for community people to get involved? Or the things that
Yeah.
if people are interested in your programs or have potential referrals into your program, how would you recommend people get involved?
So we do have this really fun thing because we're small over there. And also it's like food service. And so in my mind, the idea of having like a whole bunch of random volunteers in there, like cutting up stuff that I'm going to serve to people,
Not great.
I don't like that. Yeah. So what we came up with, there's two things. One, businesses could fund a day. So what that looks like is that you choose a day, and instead of asking your employees to volunteer on said day, we ask them to come and buy lunch or buy coffee or buy whatever on that particular day. And then you get at the end of the day, some people have been talking about, oh, we will host a little cocktail hour and make it a team building and people come down.
Oh, that's fun.
And then you can announce, we had XYZ dollars that are going to be contributing to whatever of our initiatives you've decided that you wanted to support. There's that way. The other thing is we have the neighborhood account. So we'll have sliding scale pay over there. You can put it on the neighborhood account. That's 100% off, 50% off, full price, price and a half. So people can kind of choose where they are in their situation, and it's not like a thing where if you want to use the neighborhood account, you need to sign up and give me your blood type and your firstborn child as collateral. Like if you need it, you need it. And if you don't, you don't. And I have other friends in other cities who have done that, and they find people are like, well, what if people abuse it? I was like, all the people I know that have done this find that it all balances itself out.
I'm sure that's true.
But with the neighborhood account, it's really like me thinking about what this neighborhood used to be when my grandparents lived here, and there were corner markets and small businesses all around here, and they supported each other, right? If you needed eggs or you needed bread or you needed milk and you just didn't have it, it wasn't that you went hungry. You could just put it on the account. And if you couldn't pay your account, maybe one of your neighbors did, or, it all just kind of worked itself out.
Yeah.
So it's the same kind of concept where people who are in need, and instead of it being a community meal where I say, Jamie, you get the spaghetti and that's what you're having.
Yeah.
You can come in and be like, well, I really need this. And it would be nice to take this salad because I can make lunch with my kids or whatever you wanted to do with it. So
yeah, I love
leave
that.
up to people.
I think we've got a long way to go in our understanding of how to support things. Mm-hmm. But I know, even in the kids' schools, talking about how the kids who have a balance on their account, they get the questionable little sandwich that everybody knows comes in the wax bag. And then when you sit down at the table, everybody knows you've got the questionable sandwich because you don't have any money on your account at school. And
right.
And how marking that is, and how
I'm for universal free lunch, school free lunch.
It's craziness, right? Which of course during the pandemic a lot of the school districts had free lunch. Mm-hmm. And I see stuff all the time about that. But I love the idea of letting people decide what they need. And I do think that for the most part,
because the reality of the
right?
situation, there are a large population of students who are.
Sorry. I like the idea. Yeah,
your
we
hand
thought
up.
you were stopping. You were saying 5 minutes, but
Oh, okay.
yeah, but it was so like, ba-bam! And we all both went.
Yeah. Okay, I'll just say that. I was going to say about school lunch. So the
Yeah.
reality of the situation is a lot of these children, that is their meal.
Right.
They're not going to get anything
And
else.
breakfast.
That what
Right.
they get at school for breakfast is lunch is all they're getting.
Yeah.
And to reduce them to a peanut butter and jelly sandwich when that's really their lunch and dinner is ridiculous to me.
It is 100% ridiculous,
We
especially for school
waste-
districts that have
Right.
plenty of funds to do all sorts of things that are
We
totally
waste
ridiculous.
so much food in this country. It comes to the dollar amount of like for a family of four, it's $1,600 a year of food that's wasted. $1,600 a year. Seems like a little
crazy.
number, but apply that to all the families in the world. It's billions of dollars of food that goes in the trash, and we're squabbling about should we feed children for lunch
That's cool with tax dollars.
with
that
tax
we have.
dollars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I mean, I think both of those ways to get involved seem really achievable. You know, I
Yeah.
think all businesses are looking, you know, I can speak for ourselves. We're not a huge business, but we are always looking for ways to be involved in the community or give back to our employees and create fun
And
opportunities.
it's funner than making your people come down and chop onions with me for hours.
I'm sure you'd want our people to chop onions. I mean, they're lovely
Just get a
people,
coffee and go home.
I don't think any of them actually watch this, but if they do, they're lovely, and I'm sure they chop onions fine. But I think you're right. It would be much safer for all of us, and I need them to have their fingers because they do a lot.
You're intact. You don't want everyone coming back from here with bandages and whatnot.
That's right. We went to this cooking class. This is totally an aside, and then we'll get back to business. But we went to this cooking class, my husband and I, and I had just said, I am horrible at cutting things because I always cut myself. I literally just said that. But like one tiny thing, like an avocado needed to be cut in half or something. And I was like, I'll be fine. And I grab it and I immediately cut my finger. Just very first, like, bam. And I'm like,
and they were like, you're done.
I told you.
You're on stirring
They
duty.
made me have a finger condom and walk around with my finger
That's
condom.
what we call it.
And I was like, and my husband was just like, because I had just said it. Like, I have to be really careful. So anyway, that's why I can't cut onions. That's the whole thing. So tell me, you do other things in the community, and you, like I said, I know you have lots of businesses and you do a lot of interesting things, but we were talking beforehand about the Gumbo Fest. Do you have other events like that coming up that people can be involved in?
Gumbo Fest will happen again this fall. We have a dinner coming up this month with Chef Chris Scott from Top Chef. So he's coming on the 25th, and his story is about his food journey of being Black and Amish in Upper New York. So I know the whole idea of Black and Amish is a very interesting combination.
I didn't know I was Amish racist, but apparently I hadn't thought about Black and Amish.
Yeah, when he told me that, I was like,
cool,
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, I see it. I want to learn more about it.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So he's coming into your facility to make dinner, and great, that's fun.
Yeah. So those, and we'll do those all throughout the year, just different dinner series and different ways for people, because I know not everybody wants to come in, and like I said, volunteering is weird, but at least you get to come and eat, learn about someone else's food experience. And it's important for me to continue to bring in particularly chefs of color, because there are people who look like me who don't see people on the higher end of this culinary world. And so sometimes when you see something, it becomes more believable.
Absolutely.
To your mind that you can achieve that too.
That's really cool. So the last question I like to ask people is, what advice, based on all of the things that you're doing, if you had one piece of advice, I know we talked about you have a daughter and I have random teenager kids, like what would you give someone who's starting out in life? What one piece of advice would you leave for them?
Be gentle with yourself. I think if I look back on moments where I fumbled the bag, as the young kids say, it's probably because I was just really hard on myself. I had the whole quarter life crisis, right? Where I was like, I suck. I haven't cured cancer. There's still world hunger. What am I doing with my life?
Right,
and then when you look back on that now, you're like, girl, calm down. Like, be gentle with yourself. You're going to make mistakes. You just have to get up and keep doing it over and over again. And no one expects perfection. Like, that's just not a thing.
I love that. Yeah, I think you're right. I think particularly as women, I think sometimes we tend to be really hard on ourselves. And so I think it's always good to remind ourselves to take a breath.
To chill out.
Yeah, it's all going to be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being with me, Shanita. It
Thank
was
you for
great.
having me. I've had a good time. This was fun.
Awesome.